From Variety, celebrating more than 119 years covering the business of entertainment, this is the Award Circuit Podcast. Eddie Redmayne is pretty impressed about how the prosthetics used in The Day of the Jackal made him unrecognizable.
Talking to some of the prosthetics artists who really do get approached by Secret Service, because nowadays everything is facial recognition, there really is a role for them. And I always knew the prosthetic was working when my phone wouldn't recognize me anymore.
I'm Michael Schneider, and on this episode of the Variety Award Circuit Podcast, we talk to Eddie Redmayne about his Peacock thriller, The Day of the Jackal. But first, on the Award Circuit Roundtable, Clayton and I are in New York, and we recount the TV upfronts, including the big news that Max, which used to be HBO Max, is once again HBO Max. It's all next on this edition of the Variety Award Circuit Podcast. Stay close. It is the Variety Awards Circuit Roundtable on location this week. Look at us. We're on the road. New York City.
It's the guy edition. And it's raining, and I had pizza yesterday, man. I am feeling good. I'm so happy.
You're a home sweet home.
Felt good.
Well, it is Upfronts week, and that's actually the reason why we're both here, but for different reasons. I was covering the Upfronts. You were the Upfronts, Clayton Davis. So tell the kids first off. So what did you do with our friends at YouTube?
I watched your entire dress rehearsal, which also included the opening by Alex Warren, who has the #1 song in the world right now, Ordinary. And then it closed out with this great up-and-comer named Lady Gaga.
I've
really
heard
going
of her.
Places.
Lady
Gaga.
Places. Yeah.
But I was not allowed to watch her dress rehearsal because it's Gaga, and Gaga's a perfectionist. So 10 people were allowed in the room when she did her dress rehearsal. 10 people in total. And some of those were not even the YouTube CEO. That's like how that's how significant this was. So we all had to leave when she took the stage, but you could hear the music. And it was vibrating all throughout. It was great.
Yeah. So she snapped her fingers, said abracadabra, and you were out of the room.
Can I also just say, though, like when she took the stage, I've never seen Gaga live before, so I can say I did that now. I thought she was singing a song and leaving. She did 5. It was like a mini concert.
Wow. That's, Google must have paid her well. I can only imagine.
What I was thinking, I was like, she does it in this room that's full of advertising executives and all that, man, that are in front of their bosses, and we're like, God, I would be acting such a fool if like I wasn't in front of my boss right now, because Gaga is literally performing her heart out.
Yeah.
It was nuts.
So what did you do? What was your role in this?
My role was it wasn't really a role at all. It was just really to be a fly on the wall, see how the sausage is made. And you are seeing, what's interesting is, I think in real time, we were watching a tech company make the transition into the entertainment world, because then there were all the creators that were there too. So I got all this time with various creators that you've probably seen on TikTok. But you really do see that there is still a fundamental difference between creators who are undoubtedly popular, but are not celebrities, and then celebrities that are actual, like Lady Gaga, that's like an icon. And just how they move throughout the world are two different things. So it's very interesting to watch that unfold. Like YouTube is, celebrating their 20-year anniversary, and they're really expanding, and they believe the future is Hollywood, which is included in their presentation. But we are we're learning the difference. Like, are these movie stars that we're seeing, or they're, I think even the term content creator of like what that means. But my role was pretty minimal. It was really just get some exclusive access and see how the sausage was made. And you see sometimes that it's a road, man, to get to press play on something is a lot of work.
No, that's why they call it watching the sausage get made, because it's not always pretty. And it's encased in fat and
where were you yesterday when I was watching Gaga?
So, well, this has been a week. So we had on Monday, we had NBC Universal, and then we also had Amazon in the evening, Fox in between. Tuesday, we had the Disney Upfront, and then Wednesday was another gauntlet because we had the Warner Brothers Discovery Upfront in the morning, and then Netflix in the afternoon. And yeah, I mean, it's interesting because to some degree, it was just another Upfronts week, and what did we learn, kids? Sometimes I'm not sure, other than, everyone's holding on for dear life and trying to make this industry work, hoping that their message resonates with advertisers. It is interesting to see Netflix, especially, fully embrace the ad marketplace, since obviously, as we know, for the longest time, that was not their thing, and they're still adjusting to the new reality. To see Netflix actually tout Nielsen ratings, which was something that Ted Sarandos never would do back in the day. He scoffed at the idea of Nielsen ratings, and now they shoved him up there because Nielsen has these multi-platform ratings that can actually now measure how the streamers are doing versus the linear networks. We have apples to apples comparison, and naturally Nielsen or Netflix does pretty well. So
okay, can I ask? We've spoken about this for years. Is Nielsen finally catching up to like what has been happening? Because that's been like one of the things. Like, when is Nielsen going to catch up to be able to capture like this time that we're in? So it seems like they're a lot closer.
They're getting there. Yeah. And I don't think it's perfect yet. I think there's some outlets that still don't subscribe to Nielsen numbers, so we don't necessarily see everything that people are watching. But it's the best that we've seen so far. So, and the other big news, of course, on Wednesday was, don't call it a comeback. HBO Max is back, baby.
My God.
What is going on?
I've never seen a company have the right answer all along and just fight relentlessly not to say it. Like just make these pivots all over, like it was just like, yeah, man, good. Can I just say, and this is completely speculative, I'm just like talking out loud here, so it's not rooted in fact, but there's always been this general feeling in the industry of what Zaslav's endgame is if he's going to sell HBO or sell Warner Brothers.
Right.
Is it accurate to say that when I heard that we're back to HBO Max, I then said to myself, oh, I don't think he's going to sell HBO anymore? Or is it more apparent that he's going to sell HBO now because he's going to be like, hey, here's HBO?
It's a good question. Some people are speculating that means that, HBO is fine, but what about everything else? What about all the cable networks? There's a lot of speculation that he's eventually going to sell off the Discovery networks, which is ironic since that's where he came from. But linear clearly is, or some of the networks, but linear is clearly not what it once was. And those Turner networks in particular, they're just not doing much. They're putting sports on them, but they're not doing a lot of original, scripted content. So there's a big question mark about the future of those networks.
If I could be anyone for 10 minutes, I want to be Casey Bloys when they announce HBO Max again. I just want to be him, just to know the feeling that overtakes you.
Well,
I'm just like, it's HBO, man.
It's so funny because when they first announced HBO Max, going back to like 2019, which still doesn't sound like that long ago, but it's a different era. HBO folks, because they weren't involved with HBO Max. Remember, they originally were not a part of the streamer. It was the Turner folks who were running the streamer, but they had named it HBO Max, and that pissed the HBO folks off. They did not want their name, their precious HBO brand, to be sullied on this new streamer that has Dr. Pimple Popper and all those TLC shows, and they're like, how dare you put our name that signifies and symbolizes quality and A+ top rated programming and put it on this garbage streamer, was their feeling. But over time, as we know, the Turner folks all kind of went by the wayside, and eventually Casey was running the whole thing. And so now the argument was the opposite. It's like, well, why did you run away from the HBO brand? That's what people care about, and that's why they subscribe to Max, is because of HBO. So, embrace it. So the irony is now it's the exact opposite. Now they're like, yeah, we absolutely need this to be HBO Max because we need that patina of quality connected to our service. And that's why people are going to subscribe to HBO Max, because they're not subscribing to Max just for everything. They're subscribing to Max because there's stuff they want. So let's make sure we tell them, yeah, your HBO stuff you want is there. So, but yeah, names are tough. The new name for the NBC Universal SpinCo, which was, the spinoff of the cable networks over there, Sci-Fi, MSNBC, they're calling it Versant. Although I thought it was Versant for the longest time.
That's what I was saying. Can we speak candidly? I don't like it.
No one does.
I hate it so much.
It is, bring back Quibi. Honestly, like Quibi, all is forgiven. That was a great, catchy name compared to Versant.
It sounds like the company that oversees Lumen that would become Severance. That's what it sounds like.
No, and it was the butt of many a joke, both from Seth Meyers and then later from Jimmy Kimmel. The idea that it sounds like a pharmaceutical brand or something that you need for that unsettling itch, but it does not sound like a media company. And maybe it sounds like a phone company, but Versant, just
it sounds like a mutual fund like place that rich people move money around, which I guess maybe that's a little bit of it too. But yeah, it was just like, ChatGPT it, man. It might give you some good good results.
Seriously, I may go on ChatGPT after this and ask it, like, come up with 10 names that are better than Versant or Versant.
Yeah. But yeah, so that Versant is going to be the spin-off company that houses the cable channels.
Yeah, all the cable channels at Comcast except for Bravo, because Bravo still is a huge part of the success of Peacock. Yeah, they need those Bravo shows. It's sort of one and the same. So that's why Bravo's sticking around. But
will Versant content be on Peacock?
Yeah, because they're still, they're still doing a deal. They still, Comcast and NBC Universal is still handling advertising for Versant. So they're still kind of connected, but separate. It's same corporate ownership, but different companies. And so a lot of that is just like, it's about balance sheets. It's about, things that are beyond anything that your average consumer even cares about. So,
don't worry, it's not complicated at all. It's so easy. We got it, guys.
The funny thing about upfronts now is upfronts used to all be about the shows. It used to be all about let's wow people with here are some of the new shows that we've got going, and that's still an element of it. Netflix on Wednesday announced a litany of things, a lot of pickups, a lot of show news, and we had show news throughout the week. But when you go to these presentations, fewer clips, not a lot of trailers. ABC has just one new show, which is 911 Nashville, which they haven't even shot yet. So they had no conversation about that at all. But not a lot of trailers at any of these upfronts, which is kind of fascinating.
It felt like really like nerdy baseball. Like it was like a lot of advertising talk, and I was like, oh, like this isn't for me. Because I'm not like a upfront type of person. So I want to hear about the new shows. And there was like one or two announcements, and then it was just like, ROI, and it was like all these like, all the big financial industry terms. And you were like, wow, this is like just about how much money can you make?
I know Warner Brothers has this new ad tool called Neo, and they even had a video that Conan O'Brien did, just making fun of the jargon and just all these like, okay, sure, fine.
Yeah, that's what
Neo.
YouTube has peak points, about like the peak of the video, and when your ad will pop up. So much jargon. It was interesting at the YouTube upfronts. There were people from the Oscars in the room. They were there watching. Yeah. Cause I mean, you think about like a lot of their stuff ends up on YouTube. I think like YouTube is just a very interesting animal in itself, because I don't know how much people associate it with TV, but more people are watching YouTube on their TVs and their phones now. So it is an opportunity for all types of shows. I mean, it's about the content creators, but it's also about like repurposing your content. You know, if you're the Oscars or something and you go on there, and they had the Coachella Watch Live. People watched Gaga and they had someone like reacting to it. So they just have all this, like, it's just stuff that, man, if we were just a little bit younger, Mike,
we should have been content creators. Yeah,
we totally would have been content creators, or trying to be.
Well, there was a story in the New York Times the other day about this kid, Evan Tube, who was one of the early content creators. Kid, like he was like 7 when he started these videos, unboxing videos, toy reviews, that kind of thing. But he, this was about 10 years ago, and he developed a huge following, including my kids when they were, his age and watching as well. And so this kid who, did these videos for a good 12 years, made so much money, him and his family, that he's set for life. He's in college now. So he's, no longer doing that. But, that was
just got to get in and get out. You know that, like, this ain't gonna last forever. I'm going to get my stuff, make my money. I'm going to go.
Yeah. So
it was like the Bitcoin of its time.
And that's why all these kids, Gen Z, they all just want to be content creaters.
Yeah, they're going to have to be, because
if you ask them, that's the number one job that they want to do.
For them to do, except that
there are no other jobs. So you better start preparing your videos now.
No.
So
don't be a journalist, that's for sure.
That's not a good job. That's long gone.
I know.
No, it's these are the waning days. So, what do you? I mean, when you're looking around there, what do you think this means for Emmys now? In terms of this is. We've been talking a lot about YouTube wants to break into more of the Emmy race, and they've been really pushing it hard. And they have unlimited shows, unlimited content. So,
that's interesting. So the one thing that people know, that YouTube, even though it's a distributing platform, they don't actually do the submissions for any of their shows. The content creators have to.
They rely on the content creators.
Yeah, and you have to petition to get on there. So I think if you speak to anyone around them, Hot One seems to be like their safest play that they're trying to make, and he's going to try to break into the talk series space. Weirdly, because I think one of the shows I was tracking, it did not submit. We are down to 12 submissions now, and it could end up being more like 11. And it's going to give us 3 nominees, which sounds like it's going to be worse for Hot Ones, but I actually think it actually increases its chances, because when you only have 3 slots, Passion can really like bubble up to the top. So I wonder now, could we finally see our first YouTube major nomination at the Primetime Emmys? Maybe, but he's going up against all the late night guys. There are 4 staples in that category that now are going to try to go for 3 slots. And what if 2 of them, or 3 of them get pushed out? This is we're in an interesting time.
No, indeed. Well, I want to end it by going back to the drama actor category, because this week's episode is Eddie Redmayne from The Day of the Jackal. So we'll have that in a moment with Janelle chatting with Eddie. But
he's a fine gentleman.
He's a fine.
He's a fine gentleman.
So looking at the drama actor race that he'll be competing in, I mean, it looks like he's definitely a contender, along with a few other folks. So Noah Wiley is in the mix with The Pit, and Adam Scott with Severance, Gary Oldman with Slow Horses,
and those 3 are going to be tied to probably very likely series nominations, and then you have like kind of some possible one-offs. So John Hamm and Your Friends and Neighbors, which people like the show, but I don't know if it's getting into a drama series, but Hamm might get in. People do like Day of the Jackal, but Eddie seems to be like the safest play for it, and then I was, I still not 1,000% sure what's happening with Pedro, but Last of Us is in this kind of weird moment right now, and I don't know where it's eventually going to land. And will they go back to Lee Jung-jae for Squid Game? I mean, I really think that's going to be contingent on how the third season is, the third and final season that's going to drop in June, because the second season was not particularly strong. But it's the Bear play, right? You put your season out when they're supposed to be voting for another one.
Right. Speaking of which, they showed a Bear the trailer at the Disney Upfront, and it looks pretty good. Honestly, it looks a little more emotional. It's it's a drama. Don't tell anyone. But it did feel like, they're kind of tying up loose ends here.
I was like, it's got to be the end.
It has a very, very like we're wrapping this story vibe now. Ask anyone at FX. They're like, no. There could still be. There's still room at the end. There could still be a season 5. But
listen.
We'll
Succession's greatest strength was knowing when to pull out. Like you got to know, like, when we did the story. You can't do this forever.
Yeah. So we shall see about that. But in the meantime, Eddie Redmayne, probably one of the safer contenders for Peacock this Emmy season. So
definitely their leading contender for sure.
Yeah. So let's take a look now. And in the meantime, we'll be back in LA next week, Clayton. See you then.
Be there.
After the break, the Day of the Jackal star, Eddie Redmayne. From Los Angeles and This Week New York, this is the Variety Award Circuit Podcast. And we're back. It's the Variety Award Circuit Podcast. I'm Michael Schneider. Peacock's The Day of the Jackal has already netted Eddie Redmayne nominations from the Golden Globes, Critics' Choice, and SAG Awards. The spy thriller, based on the Frederick Forsyth novel, was previously adapted into a 1973 film starring Edward Fox as the titular assassin. Redmayne had grown up watching the film and was hesitant to take on something he loved. But when he was sent the first 3 scripts by showrunner Ronan Bennett, he was quickly convinced.
I just want to know who you are. Why do you do it, Duggan?
Why do you?
Because I like to win.
So do I.
On this edition of the Variety Award Circuit Podcast, Variety's Janelle Riley talks to Redmayne about The Day of the Jackal and why he decided it was time to do some TV. They also talk at length about his Olivier Award-winning, Tony-nominated turn as the MC in Cabaret. Janelle began by noting that one comment about his performance as the MC referred to him as, quote, my sleep paralysis demon, unquote, which is a testament to how unsettling the character is supposed to be.
Yeah. That I took that as, I don't know if that was meant to be taken as a positive, but I took it as a positive. It was such an extraordinary experience. I'm still trying to make sense of it all, really, because that part was the part that really got me into acting. And I just, when I was a kid, I just found something so abstract and weird and strange and unpin-downable about him. And getting to kind of mine that character in London, with Jessie Buckley, and then in New York with Gail Rankin, it was just, and these extraordinary casts has been like glorious. And it's funny you talk about Jamie's production with Tom and Haley and Mason Alexander Park was one of the actors that then played the MC. And I've taken such joy from, because I'm a producer on Cabaret, going back and watching in fact, I'm seeing Billy Porter in London next week, seeing how every different MC and Sally brings their own individuality and their own kind of charisma to the part, and how hopefully what Rebecca's production has done, it allows for that freedom. It's a celebration of individuality, and Orville Peck is doing at the moment in New York. I'm excited to check him out as well.
Did you sort of know I assume you did. They didn't just surprise you with the direction of the play, but that it was going to be very sinister and dark.
Yeah, I mean, that was something. I mean, it's always been that for me. It has. I mean, that's embedded in what the text is. That is, Goodbye to Berlin. That is, I'm a Camera, and that is Cabaret. It was one of the glorious things was getting to spend a bit of time with John Kander and then also Joel Grey and to sort of talking about how whichever generation this show has been put on, it always seems to strike a chord, sadly. And John's saying, I just hope one day it doesn't.
Right?
Yeah.
That's why I take Sleep Paralysis Demon as a compliment, because he's meant to be. Like, he should be terrifying.
Well, for me, the character, I found him like there was a sort of puppeteering quality to him. There was a marionette. Like, was he the puppet or was he the puppeteer? I sort of looked into Commedia dell'arte and all those worlds and the mask world. I went to this wonderful clown school in Paris called Lecoq, and did a bit of what they call mask work there. And I was just it was this wonderful experience rehearsing it, in which Rebecca, our director, and Tom Scott, our designer, they just had this sort of play box of things to delve into and to help conjure these moments. Because the thing about the production is there's no set really. It's all sort of conjured.
Having seen it in the UK, what I wasn't prepared for was when they did it for the Tonys and seeing you in close up. That
was quite extreme. I think that definitely got a reaction.
But again, isn't that a good thing?
Yeah, I mean, my take on him was I saw him as a grotesque, and I think and he's meant to make you feel. Well, in my take on him was to make you feel uncanny and uncomfortable. And if you look at those where sort of MCs stem from in cabarets in 19th century Paris and then into Germany, they would invite the elite of society and then kind of skewer them, and it was holding up a mirror, and discomfort was definitely one of the themes of that piece.
I didn't mean to get sidetracked into cabaret, but this is actually good because maybe it comes from being a theater actor, but there are a lot of actors who are like intimidated to follow in roles of other people. That doesn't seem. I mean, you've done Les Mis, you've done Cabaret, and now with Day of the Jackal, which I know was an important movie to you.
Yeah, it was. Well, I mean, when I say important movie, it was just a movie I loved.
Well, that's important.
Yeah, it was. I should describe it as being like. It was, the time of VHSs, and I feel like each household had a few that were just well watched, and that was the one in at home. And
is that a British thing? Because like mine was the Muppet movie.
Was it? Like, well, I think they were really my mum and dad's favorite movies. So it was really the Day of the Jackal.
I don't think most kids are watching Day of the Jackal.
I look back on it. I think I was weirdly inappropriately young when I was watching it. But I found the character Edward Fox and Edward Fox's performance so compelling. The idea that you could follow someone and sort of weirdly be rooting for someone that gives you nothing, and actually what nothing is when it's so filled with his like charisma and kind of potency. But so yeah, when these scripts arrived, there was definitely hesitation. I was like, you don't want to butcher something you love, but you're right. I've always like Cabaret was that, Les Mis was that. Les Mis, I sort of grew up. That was the first theatre I think I saw, and similarly, Cabaret was something that I'd loved since a kid, But that's the same whenever you play a Shakespeare part. I remember doing Richard II at the Donmar Warehouse years ago, and there was the Richard II seat where all the other actors who had played Richard, so Ian McKellen, Derek Jacobi, Ben Whishaw, everyone would come and sit in the seat, and it was always like, you'd look at me like, oh, Grace, there's another icon.
Could you see them from the stage?
Yeah. Oh. Donmar's tiny, but so I think whenever you play a Shakespeare part, you're following in some sort of great lineage, but whilst I have done all of that, there is a part of me that loves, like Red, the play I did years ago, when you create a part. There's definitely it's a slightly easier thing when you don't have everyone's expectations. And I find the conversation around that interesting. I find it like when I did Cabaret, everyone's take on like who their MC is very personal. that's hopefully what, that's the point of redoing things, is to reignite people's interest and curiosity.
So this wasn't something you pursued. It actually came to you?
So it came to me. It was 3 episodes I read, and I just found it so thrilling. I just kept wanting to turn the page, and it felt like it had been weird because there had been this moment when I was doing cabaret in London. I remember sort of pitching this idea of a TV series, because one of the weird things about doing theatre is every night someone extraordinary would come and see the show, and that would be politicians or the royal family or actors, and you would meet them in these sort of private, and I was like, wouldn't it be interesting if you had like a sort of actor who was a sort of spy but living in plain sight, but then would change the way he looks and had access to all these people, and it was an idea that was germinating. And then I sort of thought, or is that kind of Lupin? Like, is it sort of that? I was like, has that been done? And then this arrived, and it was almost like, I'm about to use the word manifest. I felt like I sort of, and it was that, and for. It was like an actor's dream, this part, because all the stuff that that we all love, which is getting to change your voice and do accents and do languages and change the way you look and do action and do drama, and it had everything. It was a real opportunity to pull myself in every different direction, and to produce on it as well. So to have a kind of, I don't produce on cabaret, but this was the first time doing anything on screen, and to gain more sort of access into what that was.
You're starting to make me think like an acting career is just a long con. To meet these important people and get in the room with them.
Definitely not, but it is so strange that you suddenly, you get to meet people that you can't quite believe. And it's always straight. There's something when you've come off stage and you've taken off your makeup and you feel quite sort of naked, really. And then suddenly you're introduced to these icons or people you've grown up loving. It's a lot.
Who are you allowed to say came to shows?
There were loads of wonderful people, but the one that really floored me in London early on was Janet Jackson. And she came into my dressing room, and and all of the cast as well, our sort of young cast, were sort of completely obsessed. And she was so generous about the show, and she came and saw it again. And I bumped into her at a concert recently, and she came with her creative director, and it was. I think she's such an inspiring, performer, and I just couldn't get over the fact that she loved the show and kept coming back.
It's been like at least 10 years since you did television, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
Any hesitation about coming back, or did you think of it? Because in many ways, I think of this as like a 5-hour movie.
Yeah. I honestly, there has never been for me anything other than like instinct. That's how I've always approached work, and it is that feeling when you read a script, and whether something, I describe it as a kind of nauseous feeling that you feel when suddenly you go from reading something objectively to sort of realizing that you've transferred the thought processes of the character you're reading into yourself, and you're questioning whether you can do it. So that was always the bar that I get, or like the thing that I challenged myself with reading. And for this, it was just a no-brainer. Mm-hmm. I also love television, and the actors that, I was talking to someone about this yesterday, but the actors that I get massively starstruck by are the ones who have lived in my living room with me for season after season. Yep. I always sort of describe it as the West Wing cast, or now either the White Lotus team. These people that because characters are built, from embryonic moments over a long period of time, and you invest your time in them. And of course, for us, it's, as performers, it's joyful because you get to dig into that. But I was also, the challenges of doing it were very real. And it had been 12 years since I've done television. But when I'd last done it, all the scripts had been written. There was one director here. There were 10 episodes. There were 4 directors. In the UK, we don't have the same kind of showrunner idea. So, and one of the joyful things about this job, but the complicated things, is it was being made by Peacock and Sky and Universal and Carnival. There were many people involved, but Lashana Lynch and I, you sort of realize that because there isn't a showrunner, you become the continuity, the thread through, and that was new to me.
I was actually going to ask you about what TV you're watching, but you mentioned The White Lotus.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know why that
Amy Lou
surprises
Wood,
me.
another amazing Sally Bowles.
I saw her.
You saw her. She was absolutely magnificent.
Yeah, fantastic. So has anyone approached you? Would you go on White Lotus?
About White Lotus?
Yes, come on.
No, but then I'm also too paranoid about butchering things I love. I don't want to, I think I said that earlier, but there are shows that I've been watching, like Severance, like all these shows, and there are some things you just don't want to see yourself in because you don't want to ruin it. And I think those are high wire acts, by the way, the White Lotus things, because every year they come on and everyone breaks out and each character has to be so well defined. And I think that would be overwhelming and a lot. I feel that there must be high pressure on those jobs, but I cannot tell you how much I enjoy watching them.
I mean, you basically get a vacation. You get to go to some cool
you say
location.
that. You say that, but also you have to be topless for the entire thing. And if you were like pasty and moly like me, and you're having to, you say like they get to go on vacation. I'm like, and you sort of hear about Patrick Schwarzenegger having to go to the gym sort of 3 times. I'm like, not flipping surprised. If you've got to be like a sort of, half naked for the whole thing, I don't think the world needs to see my pallid body in a albeit beautiful. Well, I was listening to a podcast that was saying about how Mike White, like whenever he goes scouting, like he gets treated so well in hotels, and I was just like, that must be the great life now. Like when you get to, go scouting.
Oh, Mike White,
yeah.
I'm
like, that must be a good thing.
So if they do a North Pole edition,
no, even worse.
Like,
I only want to go to like the really beautiful places. But that was actually that was one of the appeals of the Jackal. Was I'm one of those people that I love armchair tourism. I love being transported to beautiful places, and the Day of the Jackal was my version of that.
Did you keep track of how many, I don't know if you thought of them as different characters, I kind of do, but how many different personas you took on?
God, there were, I think there were sort of 3 or 4, or 4 or 5 maybe, and some of them are quite extreme, prosthetics, and others were, there was one gentleman, Thirsk, who had a sort of bald. He was bald, and it had a slight shift to his nose, but it wasn't a sort of big thing. Our thing in talking to some of the prosthetics artists who really do get approached by Secret Service, because nowadays everything is facial recognition. There really is a role for them, and I always knew the prosthetic was working when my phone wouldn't recognize me anymore. I
won't turn on facial recognition on my phone.
Really?
Yeah. Nope.
Good on you.
Yeah.
I'm too late. Tell me now.
They've got you.
They've got me. They got me years ago.
I think they've been watching you for some time.
Oh, God. So depressing.
Not in a creepy way, but I'm assuming you talked to spies for this.
Yeah. So I found that kind of, like, all of that stuff. But one of the other things that I found intriguing about, and what I loved, is that the character is basically analog. Everything he's doing is tangible and made rather than digital. And the kind of irony that we live in a world in which we're on our phones and everything is tech, and the way to disappear is to go completely back to the analog. So I remember one of the first scenes in the script was him taking his pulse after sort of having done a plank for an age and looking at his Apple Watch. And I was like, I think it needs to not be a computerized watch. I think it needs to be, we need to take, because there's also an old school elegance to him that is that that I was keen to kind of delve into.
You're preaching to the choir. We're both wearing old school watches.
We are.
Yeah, look at that.
Look at that.
Do you have to change the battery?
No, these ones. This is an Omega, which like as you move it
really it charges.
It does its thing.
I'm gonna guess your watch is nicer than mine.
I don't know what's on your watch.
That's The Simpsons.
It's The Simpsons.
Yes,
you have a Simpson watch. That is
of course I do.
A great watch.
I assume most people listening to this have finished the season, but I'm going to get into slightly spoiler territory. Yeah. Actually, no, it's very spoilery. Come to think of it,
full on spoiler.
Yeah, let's just say, were you prepared for how people were going to respond to you killing Lashana's character?
I mean, I knew it was going to be shocking, and I had known from when I signed on. I'd signed on to do two, and Lashana and I both knew that was how it was going to end. But that thing that in the movie, in which again a spoiler, but the Jackal dies, there's an abruptness to it that is so extraordinary in the film because it's so shocking because you've spent time with this person, and even though they'd switched the characters, that I think that sort of jolt to it's sort of unbelievable, and it was a testament to the brilliant work that Lashana did. But I had gone in knowing that was, who knew how whether people were going to enjoy it, whether we would get to do another one. But that was the sort of aspiration. But also it was so weird because the reality is that Lashana and I were, both producing this, both starring opposite each other, and yet we barely ever met.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
So we met once in the gym about 3 months beforehand, and then we had maybe 2 or 3 scenes across 8-9 months in Budapest, and we would meet on the phone in the producer conversations, and it was so strange those days we were on set because we always would have 2 units running, and Lashana be in London, and I'd be in Croatia, or I'd be in Hungary, and it was really strange because our friendship was formed. Yeah, it was like we were making 2 different movies.
Yeah. Can you tell us anything about season 2? Let me word that another way.
I could tell you that I've just read the first script, and I'm so excited by it. I am thrilled by the ambition of it. I'm thrilled by how embodied it is, and it's made me so excited to get back in. Really, I can't wait. And that was also a feeling. I haven't done television or I've never done series television, and so I didn't know what it would feel like to go back. And I can tell you, having read the new script, I'm like, I can't wait. Yeah.
Do you think, because, we learned that this character, by the way, what do you call him? Do you call him Jackal or?
I don't, I'm going to keep that to myself.
Oh, what you're doing? Okay. He wants to get back to his wife and child ultimately, and to retire. But do you really think?
Does he really though?
Do you think he can live an ordinary life? Like, I don't see this guy going to Costco.
I mean, I love the idea of going to Costco.
They got really good hot dogs at Costco.
Have they?
Yeah. Oh, I guess you wouldn't know, but
I don't know.
$1.50, you get a hot dog and a drink.
I'm worried about what's in that hot dog.
Yeah, you're
$1.50. That scares me. I think one of the things that intrigues me about him is that, I think he's an addict. I think he loves what he does, and he's pretty brilliant at what he does, but he also loves his wife and his child, and he has the sociopathic belief that he can live these 2 lives. And, that scene with Ursula Corbero, who plays my wife, who I just think is so brilliant, in which she makes him listen to himself to marry those 2 thoughts of that you can do these 2 things. How could you think that was possible? But I think the idea that he was going to finish this big job and then go and put his feet up in that beautiful villa and with his wonderful wife and kids and spend the rest. I think I think the addiction's to the job, and I think that. I'm lucky enough to do a job I love, and sometimes, unfortunately, I'm not an assassin. But the vocation, there is a passion there that is addictive.
That's Eddie Redmayne, star of The Day of the Jackal, now streaming on Peacock. And that's it for this edition of Variety's Award Circuit Podcast. Michael Schneider is the producer and Aaron Greenewald is the editor. Be sure to subscribe to the Award Circuit Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you download podcasts. Also, head on over to Variety.com and click on the Award Circuit tab to find the latest awards predictions and key races, as well as your daily fix of news, analysis, and reviews. For Jazz Tanke, Emily Longaretta, Janelle Riley, and Clayton Davis, I'm Michael Schneider, and we'll see you on the circuit.